welcome to another lecture of the course Aquaculture. We have discussed in quite detail in the previous lecture about the status of aquaculture, how aquaculture production has been over the years in inland areas as well as in other aquaculture areas like mariculture. We discussed comparative account of the fish production in mm, inland as well as marine areas. We compared capture fish production as well as aquaculture production. Then we also studied in detail about how different countries fared in terms of total fish production and in terms of aquaculture production. We discussed a very interesting data on in the previous lecture that India stands at number one position in inland capture fisheries production. We discussed implications of that also in the previous lecture. Then the status of aquaculture we have in fact understood quite well, that we discussed in previous lecture. Now we are going to discuss aquaculture prospects today. The details of aquaculture prospects we will discuss here, that whether aquaculture has some prospects to further grow and provide food to the ever growing human population. In fact, if you can recall, most of the produce in aquaculture has been coming through inland aquaculture or freshwater aquaculture. But you can get growth rate until a limit and up to a limit, and that is corroborated by the fact that aquaculture growth rate is decreasing its pace by every passing year. And although the freshwater aquaculture has been contributing a lot, but pace of growth of aquaculture is decreasing. In fact, the rivers, lakes and wetlands make less than 1% of world surface area, but they account for about 8% of the total global fisheries production. Capture fisheries in both marine and inland areas is showing stagnation that we have already discussed, and the reasons behind that also we discussed earlier. If you have seen the aquaculture growth rate as I presented, aquaculture growth rate was for the last few decades, it was tremendous. A few recent years, you will find that aquaculture has been showing, decreased growth rate. It has slowed down. Now, accelerating the pace of growth in these areas is quite challenging. In fact, getting growth rate beyond a limit becomes a challenge, and that can be understood very simply by, for example, if we are growing a fish population in a pond and we are not managing it properly, we are going for extensive aquaculture, say for example, without major management interventions. In fact, almost no management is there in extensive aquaculture. So suppose we are getting, for example, 400 grams, the fish growth is 400 grams in 1 year. And if we start managing the pond little bit and applying the management strategies, then maybe we can increase the growth if we provide supplementary feeding, if you start managing the water quality, maintaining the water quality, if you also take care of the health of the fishes, then maybe the growth rate from 400, which you were getting earlier through extensive aquaculture system, now you are getting maybe 700 or 800 grams growth. But going beyond 800 gram growth, if you want to improve growth rate further, it will be difficult. And maybe by applying more sophisticated interventions and more scientific approach, you can get growth rate of 900 grams. So earlier the growth was only 500 grams. You applied management strategies, then you got 800 gram growth. That means there was a difference of 300 gram. The absolute growth was 300 gram. But when you wanted to further improve it, the growth rate, although 100 gram, you got 900 grams by applying further scientific approaches of management, but the real growth was only 100 gram. From 800, you went to 900 grams. So size is increasing, but the growth rate is declining. The growth rate of growth is declining. That way, it becomes very challenging when we go for exploiting the aquaculture practice beyond a limit. Now, why we should go only for the aquaculture practice which is traditionally being practiced nowadays? We, in fact, we can set a growth rate only up to a limit, and why not try to explore more areas which are suitable for aquaculture and which can be utilized to produce fish in larger quantities, good quality fish in larger quantities. In fact, globally, we are having huge resources, such resources which have not been utilized for fish production up to their potential. And for example, in our country, India, we are having large areas which may be utilized for aquaculture or increasing fish production. For example, we are having very long coastline of 8129 kilometers. Then we have exclusive economic zone of more than 2 million square kilometers. Likewise, continental shelf, we are having about 0.5 million square kilometers, and then we are having very long river stretch, about 1,64,118 kilometers. And likewise, estuaries, lagoons, lakes, upland lakes, reservoirs, many aquatic resources which have the potential to produce good quality fish in large quantity. So, instead of depending only on the traditional aquaculture practices, we can also look forward to exploiting the other aquatic resources for aquaculture production. These are pictures of some of the aquatic resources which we are blessed with. There are huge number of such resources which can be utilized for the purpose. Then one thing that comes in mind, that when we are doing traditional aquaculture and we are getting growth, but the pace of growth is decreasing, then why try to expand aquaculture to other areas when we are having many other food production systems? Like, we are having agriculture, we are having land-based animal farming systems. Then why go for aquaculture? We can shift to some other food production systems. Here we are going to discuss that why we should go for aquaculture, how it can be very good to opt for aquaculture as a food production system. So we are going to address this why. Why aquaculture should be practiced. I have tried to explain this in three major categories. A is scope of expansion. Then in further slides, you will see that there are two other major categories, subheadings that are given. One is food quality and another is advantages of aquaculture. In these three subheadings, we will try to understand that why we should go for aquaculture. The scope of expansion is one of the major factors. I have tried to further categorize it into three important points. One is limited scope of expansion of land-based farming systems, then capture fisheries showing almost stagnation, and aquaculture has enormous scope of expansion. So these three points I have tried to explain in further slides one by one. Limited scope of expansion of land-based farming systems. Now, we all know that almost 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered with water. So we are already having very limited land. And in that limited land, we need to, go for all the activities which can be done on land. And one more thing that I should tell you, that for any organism, you take any organism, any living being, almost entire life cycle revolves around three major points. One is survival, survival, feeding, and reproduction. Here also, when human population is increasing, then we need to fulfill the demands of growing human population. What is the first demand? Survival in case of human beings can be connected to shelter. We need homes. We need places to live. To construct more homes, to build more homes, what we need to do? We need to expand on the periphery of the human settlements. If you go through human settlements in big cities or in small towns or even in villages, there is an increase in human settlements, and that is only on the outskirts, the periphery of that human settlement. And when we do not have enough space in our home, then we try to get some place near our human settlement where we can build new home. Now, for getting shelter, for building home, we are occupying land near human settlement. There is one fact: the land which is near the human settlement is considered as one of the most fertile lands. So, when we are building homes, we are not only encroaching the land for the purpose other than food production, but we are encroaching, or we are occupying the land which is most fertile, which could have produced more food. It's not barren land. Usually it is quite productive in major cases. So, but we have to do it because that is the priority. So that thing requires land, occupying land. Then we apart from getting houses built, then we need many more things related to our growth and development. Schools we need hospitals, we need sports complexes, we need um, for entertainment we need many things, we need shopping complexes, then we need um, logistics and infrastructure development. For example, we are now getting 2-lane, 4-lane, 6-lane, 8-lane highways, expressways, and many other such things, and all of them require land. So we are occupying more and more land for non-food production uses. And when we go for food production, say for example, we need animal protein, and we go for land-based animal farming systems, cattle, goats, sheep, pigs. Then what happens? That we have to do this food production on land only. And when we are occupying land which is already shrinking, the land area available per capita is already shrinking. So we need to occupy land for non-food production purposes, and even for food production purposes we need to occupy land. Then we do not get enough space. But the human population is increasing, although again the pace of growth has little bit declined. We can discuss that in some other lecture, but it is still increasing. It's ever increasing. So increasing number of people will need more and more food. So we have to look that thing, that how to these are some of the anthropogenic activities or human activities that occupy land for purposes other than food production, in terms of urbanization, what many aspects of urbanization, not only building houses and other things. We discussed many factors. Then human settlements in the areas where agricultural food production was going on. And then I discussed about highways and many other things, infrastructure and logistics network that are being laid down. They all require land. And in the earlier lecture also we discussed about that capture fisheries is showing almost a stagnation. So people say that why go for aquaculture when more than two-thirds of Earth's surface is already covered with water. Two-thirds of Earth's surface is huge. We know that we are having oceanic areas, huge oceanic areas. So why don't catch fish from there and don't go for investing money in aquaculture and then produce food? But we have been doing that. We have been catching or capturing fishes from ocean or from natural resources for long. And if you see this graph, then the data is being shown here from 1950. There has been tremendous increase in capture fisheries from the wild. We have been capturing and we have been getting good growth rate in capture fisheries. But when we caught fishes in very large numbers, so the supply of the fishes from capture natural systems was not enough, was not showing growth rate. Then the growth rate was almost in a straight line. That means it showed stagnation for very long time. I mean, you can say from 1990 or so, we are getting almost no growth. A little bit fluctuations are there, but in capture fisheries, we are getting no growth. Whether you talk of capture fisheries from inland waters in dark blue, or you talk of capture fisheries in marine areas, that is shown in light blue. But if you observe the aquaculture growth, this is when capture fisheries started to decline, although aquaculture was showing growth from early times only. And here you can see that it is going like anything. It has contributed and it has showed growth, very good growth rate in terms of fish production. So when capture fisheries started to show stagnation, but aquaculture is still growing, why not exploit, why not use this food production system to feed our growing human population? And in fact, we have got so much from the natural resources through capture fisheries that many of the important fishery have collapsed. For example, Pacific salmon, I think this was in US, which was studied as collapsed. Atlantic cod fishery was collapsed, and orange roughy fishery was also collapsed. That has been reported in earlier reports. And there is one very interesting thing that I would like to again discuss, that China has been on top of capture inland fisheries production for I think almost 40 years. But when it observed that the ichthyufaunal diversity of it's one of the longest river, the Yangtze River, ichthyufaunal diversity was declining, and riverine ecology was was in bad shape. Then what happened? They put fishing ban in this river system, in all its tributaries and the main river, Yangtze River, since January 1, 2020. And it is this year, 2020 data, where India became on top, number one, in inland capture fish production. And another interesting fact is that the second position was occupied by not China but Bangladesh. China came at third place, but China was doing it for purpose. When they did so, after supporting all the fishermen and other whatever government financial support to the stakeholders was needed. They did. And there was a latest report of 2024 where they reported that they have shown huge improvement in the riverine ecology and biodiversity. So that was the purpose, that we should not lose our original germplasm, which are housed in these river systems. And that was the purpose China was doing, and it seems that they have been successful in this. This is the picture of that river, what I was talking about in China. Now, the third point within the scope of expansion, that although capture fisheries is stagnant, has shown almost a stagnation, and we do not have enough land for land-based animal farming systems. So, and aquaculture is showing growth, but here you can see in this graph that from 1980s, the rate of growth is declining. Up to 2020s, it has been shown. The rate of growth is declining, but growth is still there. It has not stagnated. The growth rate is declined, but the growth is still taking place. More and more quantity of fishes are being produced, as I have discussed at length in the previous lecture. So, because of this, that there are new innovative technologies coming up regarding culture, regarding food and feeding, and regarding dealing with diseases. So we are getting good growth rate in aquaculture, and there are enough large number of resources that can be exploited for aquaculture. So that shows that we have enough huge resources which have so far not been utilized for fish production. We can go to those places, standardize the technologies for those places, and come up with food production, fish production in those areas through aquaculture. We have, as I was telling you, that we have adopted new technologies, and we are in aquaculture we are using more and more modern technologies nowadays. This is one of the examples, recirculatory aquaculture system, where we use the same water again and again, because in aquaculture the fresh water, which is already very precious and which has multiple uses for human life and related activities, so that precious water has to be used again and again. We should not waste water in producing food for humans. So what happens in this type of system, and many other advancements are there in aquaculture, which we have been adopting. Now, why aquaculture we were discussing? We discussed the first major point, scope of expansion. Now we are coming to the second major point of why aquaculture, that is food quality. Food quality we are going to discuss for fishes. Food quality I'm going to discuss in 5 points. Plant products are limiting in one or the other essential amino acids, plant proteins I mean. Then fish have balanced amino acid profile. Then polyunsaturated fatty acid or good fat is present in fish. Fish flesh is also rich in minerals and vitamins. Then fish flesh is highly digestible. We will discuss it them one by one. Plant products are limiting in one or the other essential amino acids. We all know that proteins are made up of amino acids, and among amino acids there are certain essential amino acids and certain non-essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are those which our body cannot synthesize, so that has to be taken from outside. So the best thing to take from outside is not in the form of supplements or medicines or other things. That should be present in your food. The food you are consuming that should contain all the essential amino acids. So if you use plant products or plant proteins, then they are limiting in one or the other essential amino acids. For example, if you go for pulses or even cereals, you will find sometimes lysine is limiting, sometimes methionine is limiting. So you must have seen that those people who are strict vegetarian, even they do not forget to take milk. Milk is not plant protein, but they they include milk in their diet so that they can get the essential amino acids from milk, which are limiting in the plant proteins. Even those who are strict vegetarian and maybe they are not consuming milk for one or the other reason, what they do, how they do, how their body meets the requirement of essential amino acids, they take a blend of plant proteins. That means they do not depend only on one kind of plant protein source. They take a blend of plant protein source, multiple plant protein sources, so that if one plant protein is deficient or limiting rather in one of the essential amino acids, the other plant protein may not be limiting in that essential amino acid but some other essential amino acid. So by taking a blend, you can get uh, variety of all the essential amino acids, and your essential amino acid requirement may be met. But in case of fishes, fishes have excellent amino acid profile, and whatever is required, essential amino acid profile, whatever is required by human beings um, for their body, their daily requirement. And fish contains, we know that good quantity of protein, about 18 to 20% when we are saying analyzing it on wet weight basis. What does this mean? In some places you will get to see that fishes contain 60 to 70% of protein, and here I have written fishes having 18 to 20% protein. That may be confusing, but that is nothing. The same thing interpreted in a different way, presented in a different way. For example, here we have written wet weight basis. What does this mean? This means that when we are analyzing fish tissue for protein content, we are taking the fish tissue as such, in fresh form, in wet form, without drying. The sample is collected from the flesh itself and we analyze protein. So the biochemical analysis, what we are doing, that is we are going to analyze not only protein, fat, minerals, vitamins, but we also analyze the water content. We do not remove water content from the sample. That kind of sample is analysis is called wet weight basis, including water. If you keep water within the share of everything present in the sample, then it comes to 18 to 20%. But when we dry the sample, when you don't have water content in the sample, you dry it overnight, when the sample is totally dry and in powdered form, and if you analyze protein content, then that will be minus water content, which is considerable amount in case of fish flesh. So what we get, if you analyze that dry sample, then protein content will come around maybe 70% or so. So that is the thing which I wanted to explain here. And within the food quality, now fishes have excellent content of PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acid, what many people call it as good fat. So PUFA, fish is a major dietary source of N3 highly unsaturated fatty acids. We know that we are having N3 or omega 3 and omega 6 or N6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are considered very good for human consumption, and they have a lot of benefits. For example, omega 3 fatty acids, these fatty acids improve blood circulation, reduce the tendency of blood to easily clot, and then improve vascular blood vessel function in several ways that reduce the risk of heart disease and slightly lower blood pressure. One more thing, I have not given here reference regarding a report that I studied. There was some research paper, probably from somewhere from Europe, that by taking PUFA-rich diet, the people started to show prevention of atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis did not develop, and that was also helpful in controlling rheumatoid arthritis. So PUFA, we all know, has a lot of benefits, and we also know that when we go to doctors, and talk to them about consuming animal protein, then usually nowadays they say you to please avoid fat, animal fat. But they will not say the same thing regarding fish. They say that, okay, take oily fish. Why? Because they contain N3 and N6 PUFA, especially the marine fish. They are having more of these omega 3 and omega 6 series, omega 3 series fatty acids. Fish flesh is also rich in minerals and vitamins, very rich source of these fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A and vitamin D, and that's why um, that is present in liver of many of the marine fishes, for example cod. And many a times uh, the doctors, the physicians, they prescribe you supplementation of cod liver oils. Cod liver oil, sometimes in the form of oil, sometimes in the form of pearls, that you are supposed to take in order to um, maintain the vitamin E, vitamin D. Then flesh is also rich in calcium, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, sulfur, chlorine, magnesium, and many more, iron, in the quantity which is required by humans. So vitamins and minerals both, and there are other um, minerals which have also been written here in the third point. They are also present, but in small quantities. For example, copper, iodine, manganese, cobalt, zinc, fluorine, selenium. Now, cadmium, boron, arsenic, aluminum, lead, nickel are found in trace quantities in different group of fishes. So, fish are rich in not only fat soluble vitamins, but the many of the essential nutrients that are required by human body. Now, one more very important point regarding food quality of fishes. Probably you could have noticed that if some flesh of some land animal, for example, any goat or sheep, or if that is cooked, that takes longer time. But if you cook um, fish, it takes very short time. And not only this cooking time, but the protein that you are consuming, the fish protein that you are consuming, that is highly digestible. Its digestibility is more compared to other food items, animal food items. In fact, in some cases, the digestibility coefficient has gone to absolute, almost 100. And that is something, in some cases, you can get the digestibility of about 100. So that is something very, very remarkable, that you are getting consuming white meat and digestibility is very good, and the fish is having all the essential amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals. So why not go for this? So in terms of food quality, it can compete with any excellent food item. So far we have discussed two major points. A was scope of expansion. B was food quality. Now, the last one, advantages of aquaculture. Why we should go for aquaculture um, uh, instead of other land-based animal farming systems or other farming systems? In fact, there are three major points what we can discuss. Production of fish biomass per unit area is more than land-based animal farming systems. Then fishes are very efficient converters of food to flesh, and it helps in earning foreign exchange and generates employment. Now, production of fish biomass per unit area is more than land-based animal farming systems, or in other words, we can say this is economically efficient and viable. How we can explain this? The fishes which can be raised in an unit area, the biomass produced through fish culture is much more than the land-based animal farming systems. We can understand it with an example that in 1 hectare water area, usually nowadays people are stocking even almost 20,000 fishes in 1 hectare water area. And in 1 hectare land area, uh, if you are stocking cattle, then you end up stocking only about 100 or so numbers. And if uh, 20,000 fishes are being taken care of well if management strategy is good, scientific approaches are applied to aquaculture, then these 20,000 fishes, if you you have stocked Indian major carps, katla, rohu, mirgal, then they may grow in good conditions. They may grow up to 1 kilogram in a year. That means you are producing about 20,000 kilograms of biomass in 1 year, in 1 hectare water area. In the similar land area where you are going to stock cattle, where you are farming cattle, the cattle will grow maybe 60 or 70 kilograms, or maybe if 100 kilogram even, then 100 cattle showing 100 kilogram of weight, it comes to 10,000 kilogram of biomass. So in the same unit area of 1 hectare, you are getting about 20,000 kilogram of biomass in case of fishes. That is twice than that of cattle, which produce biomass of about 10,000 kilograms. So you can say that economically this is more efficient than um, land-based farming systems. And it was not only economically viable and efficient, but if I can go to the previous slide, then I can show you that fishes are efficient converters of food to flesh. This we measure in with a parameter known as food conversion ratio, what is written here as FCR. FCR we measure by calculating the quantity of food which has been fed to the fish, and over fish or any other animal, and over the total weight. And sometimes if you have to go for percent FCR, then we multiply it by 100. In case of food to flesh ratio, in case of fishes, we can get lower the FCR, in fact, better the quality of diet, better the conversion. So in case of fishes, we can get even 1 or very close to 1 FCR in case of fishes. But in case of cattle or other such land animals, the average FCR is about 4 or 5, 4 or maybe 5 FCR you can get for these cattle. That means if you are feeding them 4 kilogram of food, then maybe 1 kilogram of flesh will be formed. And in case of fishes, not always we are getting 1 FCR. If 1 FCR, in fact, have been reported in experimental conditions usually, but we get about 1.5 and 1.6, 1.7, or even 2 FCR is quite good, because you are needed to feed almost half of the food in order to get the same quantity of flesh compared to cattle. In cattle, it is more than 4 FCR. Here it is 2, or maybe if you're lucky, if you're following all the good practices, then maybe close to 1. Then when we do aquaculture activity, we usually do it in areas where marginalized people are also there, and you generate employment like anything. You will need for many purposes of aquaculture practice, like pond preparation, then feed preparation, then management of the aquaculture pond, and then fishing, routine fishing you need to do. And then for harvesting, you will need to some fishing nets, and if the aquatic body is large enough, then maybe nets and gears both. And then you need to employ a large number of people in for many other purposes, including marketing and other things. Or if you're also having the business of processing, then you will need to employ further people. So in nutshell, you can say that it's not only that one entrepreneur or businessman is getting the benefit, but a large number of people are benefited from this. And we export aquatic products, as you could have seen in the status lecture, aquaculture status lecture, that we export aquatic products and get good foreign exchange, and we generate employment also. So these are the advantages of aquaculture, which we have discussed in detail. Now, what we can conclude in this lecture of aquaculture prospects, we can say that aquaculture in the recent scenario has enormous scope of expansion that we have discussed in detail. Aquaculture produces one of the best quality protein diet at relatively cheaper production cost compared to other production systems. And mind you, we are getting white meat. In order to provide good quality protein diet to increasing human population at affordable price, uh, we need to promote eco-friendly and sustainable growth of aquaculture. In fact, this thing is very important, that we should focus on aquaculture growth, but try to make it sustainable, try to make it eco-friendly, that if we are not taking care of the environment, then aquaculture will not be sustainable, and it will have to end. So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much